Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. My name is Stephen Carey. I work for LabVantage Solutions here in Australia and New Zealand. Today is a conversation about laboratory technology, where it has come from, where it is today, and where it is going. And I genuinely believe that where we are today is one of the most exciting times in my 30 years of being in the laboratory environment. The title of today's session is The New Laboratory Operating Model. This is the journey we're going to take together from paper logbooks to AI agents that can set up stability samples in less than 5 minutes. Before I start though, if anyone's feeling a little bit nervous about where they're at currently, recently I was at 2 roadshows, one in Melbourne, one in Sydney, and I asked the audience about using LIMS or some other laboratory software, and 50% of them still said they were using paper or a hybrid of paper and Excel spreadsheets. So don't be scared. So let's take a practical look at laboratory technology, how it has evolved where it is today. For this presentation, you don't need to understand what LIMS is or have used laboratory software. It'll take about 45 minutes as we walk through the evolution of laboratory technology, and we're going to explore how laboratories are moving from digital records to autonomous execution. Our journey today is in 7 parts. Part 1 is the lab before digital, or where it all started. Part 2 is the rise of LIMS from paper to on-premise IT systems. Part 3 is the cloud era, where configurability and scalability became part of the conversation. Part 4 is the enterprise SaaS, the modern lab platform. And part 5 is the time when AI reached some critical mass and why it is now. Part 6 is the future, but our future is also now, the execution engine for the autonomous laboratory. And part 7 is why you should feel safe having this conversation with LabVantage. So let's get into it. Part 1, the lab before digital, where it all started and why it mattered. So let's go back to the beginning. And I remember in my early laboratory days in the 90s, I worked in a pharmaceutical company, and they had batch records and filing cabinets. So all of the laboratory information relied on paper-based processes, records, spreadsheets, and filing systems. They were certainly slow and inefficient compared to today's methodologies. Data got delayed in being collected, duplications sat between different departments, and the visibility, even where the records were, slowed laboratory operations. So there was high risk and also low visibility. The compliance, data entry integrity, everything was written in the logbook, and audit readiness was very difficult to maintain. So the world of paper before software. Like I mentioned, in my own experience, everything was written in logbooks. Each page was signed and dated at the bottom, and we had to track samples with physical labels and handwritten logs of where that sample is and how it's moving through manufacturing or research facility. Compliance meant a paper audit trail. if you could find it. Data sharing literally meant taking a photocopy and then running down to the different department and handing it to someone else. The risk of errors was enormous. Records were lost and inconsistencies were enormous. Some labs, like I said, maybe even 50% of them, are still doing this in some form today. So what is the real cost of these manual processes if you're trying to work towards return on investment calculation? Here are some things you should be considering. Let's start with data integrity risks. So we mentioned transcription errors, sitting in that balance room, looking at the balance, writing down the result in your logbook, and then transcribing that after the calculations were done onto a lot record. Those very logbooks that we were all working from on the bench sometimes got dropped in the sink. Other times just had solvent spilled on them. Records got lost and damaged. The SOPs that should have been sitting right beside you often got buried under piles of documentation, and the version that you might find during an audit inevitably was the version out of date. It should have been superseded. Inconsistent results across sites. And when you're sitting in those audits, they find or fail to find documentation because it's gone missing or it's somewhere and you just can't find it. Then there's the operational inefficiencies. Hours spent searching through filing cabinets, looking for historical data. Duplicate tests because the test result was lost or just misplaced. Slow turnaround on batch release. Batch release documents were this thick, and the laboratory manager or 2IC had to flick through every page to check that it was right for release. And that spread of documentation also led to delays for the researchers when they were trying to do regulatory submissions. And we found that scientists were doing administration, not doing science. So the summary of this result, working with paper and manual processes, higher compliance risks, lower productivity, definitely reduced visibility, slower decision-making processes, and increased operational costs. So now we move to part 2. And this is the industry responding to an inefficient system. We went from paper to on-premise software, the first digital revolution. Moving away from those logbooks and spreadsheets and manual forms to digitalized systems, centralized data, electronic workflows, and some standardization started. Improved data integrity, instruments connected directly to the data handling systems, reduced errors, made traceability better, and capturing those SOPs electronically helped improve the version control. Efficiencies were gained with faster access to information and streamlined laboratory operations. This all led to stronger compliance, complete audit trails, and easier regulatory reporting. That's a nice document. Maybe that's just one batch release file, all pushed into a computer. So before I get too deep, what is a LIMS? Let's start from the beginning. LIMS stands for Laboratory Information Management System. And if you're in the healthcare sector, you might just call it a LIS, a Laboratory Information System. Healthcare apparently doesn't need management. Who knew? Think of it as an operating system for your laboratory. It tracks samples from the moment they arrive to the moment the results are reported. And I think even before that, the LIMS system can schedule the collection of samples. It manages the tests that you do or the methods that you follow, the instruments and their calibrations, the staff and their training, and the specifications for your measurements. And it also helps with that compliance with the documentation. LabVantage, my company, has been building LIMS systems for over 40 years. And if you think about that, that's before most of us even had emails. The first iteration of on-premise LIMS was powerful but complex. The salespeople of the time made the promise: replace paper with a digital system of record, enforce workflows and approvals, generate audit trails automatically, interface all your instrumentation directly, and help support regulatory compliance. That's a powerful promise. But what happened in the reality? The reality was the LIMS systems were installed on your servers that had to be maintained by your own IT people. The LIMS that were pushed out was highly customized and bespoke programming for your particular laboratory. Upgrades were expensive, risky, and infrequent. And your IT team needed you to lodge a ticket to manage the infrastructure. Validation cycles took months. So what does that mean? It means we got ourselves into a trap, a technology debt. Early LIMS implementations were so heavily customized to match to each unique laboratory workflow. This felt like a strength, as the system did exactly what you needed. But it became the trap. Every customization made subsequent upgrades harder and more expensive. Labs found themselves locked into old versions, unable to adopt new features and improved efficiencies. The cost then of maintaining bespoke code grew year after year. The industry needed a better model. And this typically arrived with the era in the cloud. Configurable software, accelerators, and hosted LIMS. Configurable software is powerful as a tool. It lets you adapt the system to your needs without having to code. So we like to talk about configuration, not coding. Accelerators were pre-built pieces of content to form templates and workflows that could speed up implementation time and value. The move to hosted systems left your IT more secure, many times more reliable, and up to date, managed by experts, so you could focus on what matters, your science. And they could scale with confidence. Elastic infrastructure of the cloud environments allowed your lab to grow from a single site to a global site without huge additional expenditure. Drive for innovation led to faster releases, continuous improvements, and new capabilities being able to be delivered. Era 2, cloud-hosted LIMS, configurable but not customized. The shift moved bespoke code to configuration. Industry accelerators for pharma, food, beverage, and mining. Hosted in the cloud meant your IT team had no servers to manage and infrastructure that became out of date. Faster deployment times, because your IT team didn't need to acquire those servers and routers and cabling and lay it all through the lab. Lower cost of ownerships. What this meant was labs could go live in months, not years. Best practice workflows were built out of the box. If you're in a contract lab environment, you would grab the accelerator for contract lab. If you're in pharmaceutical, you'd use the accelerator for pharma, greatly increasing the speed of delivery. And the compliance frameworks were pre-configured. Regulation changes slowly, and we can build them in to our systems. The IT burden was reduced considerably, and data remained largely siloed within the LIMS. And LabVantage, our system, is more than just a LIMS. As labs evolved, so did we. With electronic laboratory notebook replaced paper notebooks, captured experimental data digitally for the true researcher. Laboratory execution systems enforced step-by-step laboratory procedures and reduced errors. So think about your digital SOP. You could only move to step 2 after you'd done step 1, and this enforced that method. Scientific data management systems. Regardless of your type of instrument, the scientific data management system could capture the data files automatically and upload them to your batch records electronically. And all of that data allowed for better analytics, visibility through dashboards for management, statistical process control for your testing regime, trend analysis for the manufacturing side, and AI capabilities. All of these models living in one system, a unified platform, a true lab ecosystem. They were still largely reactive, however. You put your data in, you got data out, and humans still had to do everything in between. So we move on to part 4, the enterprise SaaS system. A modern lab platform, subscription, scalable, always current. Enterprise SaaS is a maturation or evolution of the cloud system. So what changed? But let's start with what it stands for. SaaS, software as a service, where you consume software like a product. It's a subscription-based licensing model, very much like your Netflix account. It has continuous updates without major projects. It can be single tenant or multi-tenant in the cloud architecture. globally scalable across sites and regions, integrated compliance and security by design, and it's the most advanced LIMS platform. But there's still a gap. We found that scientists were still spending up to 40% of their time doing administration. It was also reported to us that data volumes just keep growing, 50% annually. However, in the lab and in industry, headcount remained flat or declining. And it was a system of record, not a system of action. Laboratories were drowning in data, but starving for insight. And let's do a quick summary of how the LIMS journey has moved since the last 40 years. So in the 80s and 90s, paper logbooks started to move to on-premise LIMS systems. In the 2000s, these systems became configurable rather than code-based. Industry accelerators became specific and hosted options became available. In the late 2010s, cloud SaaS LIMS became commercially popular. Hosted systems introduced scalability, subscription models, and uniform data management processes. And in the 2020s, enterprise-level SaaS platforms started to deliver. Global standardization, compliance by design, and operational excellence. And today, LabVantage talks about our LabVantage CORTEX, an AI-native SaaS platform, an orchestration platform with Agentic AI built in at the foundation. Autonomous laboratory operations start now. So we can see that every decade has transformed how laboratories manage their data. The next transformational change is how laboratories make decisions, coordinate work, and execute processes. Right now, we are witnessing the most significant transition in laboratory informatics. And I think you'd agree that across all of the technology, AI is quite the buzzword at the moment. So why now? What is it? The next step, the AI inflection point, is the most important moment in laboratory history. Modern laboratories are under pressure. Our survey found 75% of labs plan to implement AI within the next 24 months. As mentioned before, labs identified themselves that the data that they're collecting each year is growing by 50%, but their headcount is not. Scientists are still spending 40% of their day on data entry, spreadsheet creation, and administrative tasks. And the regulatory requirements don't stop. They only get more. But the budgets to do it all have remained flat. And there's a real talent shortage, not because people don't love science, but because people are getting older and just wanting to retire. It's hard to find replacements for them. So I want to give you a simple framework for you to think about and where the laboratory software has been and where it is going. The first generation of LIMS was a system of record, the legacy LIMS. The second generation of LIMS now includes generic AI and chatbots. If you ask questions, it generates recommendations. You can search, it will summarize, and it will generate more reports and more words for you to read. But it can't perform anything. What we need is a system of execution, LabVantage CORTEX, the autonomous laboratory execution system, plans and coordinates workflows, executes multi-step laboratory processes, interacts and engages with systems, data, and instruments, automates routine scientific work, and continually learns and improves your outcomes. The advantage here is that work gets completed, not just recommended. So we're here to help. We're here to help scientists focus on science, management, save time and reduce workload. Customers have improved quality, compliance, and consistency. And innovation is accelerated. And let's spend a moment to explain LabVantage CORTEX, the execution engine for the autonomous laboratory. LabVantage CORTEX is the new end-to-end platform for the laboratory ecosystem, sitting right in the middle. It unifies LIMS, ELN, SDMS, ERP systems, scientific data. It's built on 40 years of proven laboratory informatics expertise. And it's at the heart, architecturally integrated into the LIMS, not a side layer on top. The result is that it plans, it executes, and continuously improves with people in control. So what is Agentic AI? Let me explain. Traditional AI, like ChatGPT, answers questions and suggests things, gives you lots of interesting stuff to read. Agentic AI can plan, it can think, and take actions autonomously to complete a goal. So instead of clicking through 50 screens to set up a stability study, you just set the goal. You tell LabVantage CORTEX what you need, and it builds it for you. Critically, with Agentic AI, our LabVantage CORTEX always keeps a human in the loop for critical decisions. Think of it as a highly capable digital colleague, not a replacement for your scientists. So side by side, a traditional AI reacts, answers questions, requires step-by-step instructions. You still have to do the work. There's a limit on the context, and it can only suggest next steps. Where an agentic AI is proactive, plans and takes decisions, works towards outcomes autonomously, engaging other agents as required. executes and coordinates that work, understands the context from the knowledge base, and delivers results. And for us, that's all done through a conversation interface. We call it Lottie. Ask, approve, execute. Lottie transforms laboratory software from menus and forms into natural conversations. You ask a question in plain English, or you state a goal. Lottie understands. Then the agentic framework kicks in and makes a plan, gets approval, then executes. And the reports come out. But you are always in control. All agentic systems need to maintain a human in the loop. And it's a common question, and we're prepared. What if AI makes a mistake? We place a human in the loop for any critical or high impact action. LabVantage CORTEX requires a human to review and approve before processing. So what that means is AI does the heavy lifting, but you make the final call. And every AI action is logged with a complete audit trail, just like your normal limbs, fully traceable and reviewable. And it can't be outsmarted. Your access to limbs is role-based. What you can see is restricted to your role and your duties. And when you log in to LabVantage CORTEX, the role you log into also limits the capability of our agents. This is not AI making decisions for you. It's AI doing the work so you can make better decisions faster. Data integration and integrity. Let's start with the integration story. LabVantage CORTEX connects your LIMS, ELN, LES, STMS, ERP, and it talks to them using the Model Context Protocol. It's a way of securely connecting agents to enterprise systems. And our agents talk to our agents, and they follow a protocol also, agent to agent. And it allows AI agents to coordinate with each other. And your data never leaves your environment. It's not exposed to any public model. And the integrity story. Knowledge graphs. The grounding in the company knowledge that is bespoke to you, your methods, your products, your specifications, your SOPs. LabVantage CORTEX is trained specifically from your corporate knowledge. And it's safe, encrypted at rest and in transit. Every action audit traced, and your intellectual property is secure in the customer LabVantage CORTEX enclave. And the same can be said for regulatory compliance. It's built into the system, just like the early accelerators had built-in regulatory standards. CFR 21 Part 11, GXP ready, EU AI Act aligned, which I think is ISO 26006, SOC 2 for the IT people, SOC 2's important security standard. Again, we've said this before, but it's so important. Every decision auditable. End-to-end traceability. Validation documentation always ready. Your compliance team can rest easy. Policies, controls, evidence built in. You're always ready for that inspection. Confidence in every decision. Designed for compliance. Built for security. Proven for trust. Ready for tomorrow. So what are the autonomous agents and what do they actually do? Let's have a look. This is what we've built. Worksheet agents. Dynamically build ELN worksheets from plain English prompts, cutting down maybe 2 hours to 5 minutes. Sample management agents. Create samples, assign tests, allow for data queries. Can eliminate up to 50 clicks per operation. For the researchers, chemical search agents. Queries chemical structures and substructures. Accelerating compound discovery in seconds. And stability agents or shelf life studies, agents that build compliant protocols via natural language. And I'll show you one of these soon. Saving up to 75% for a protocol startup. And we're continually expanding through our agent factory. New agents added continuously. Fast track through SaaS. Built for workflows and your data. So now let's look at a chemical search example from an ice cream company.
While working in the LabVantage electronic laboratory notebook, a researcher uses LabVantage's inbuilt chatbot Lottie to perform actions. In this case, the action is to find compounds similar to a target compound with molecular weight in a defined range. This action initiates the orchestration of agents to produce a report with the matching compounds.
And now I'm going to talk through the stability study setup and then show you it. So before LabVantage CORTEX, it was quite the manual process. And in a LIMS system, you'd need to create a study record, define the conditions, define all of the time points, create samples per condition and per time point, assign methods, analysts, notifications. And it could take hours, hundreds of clicks. And the chance of getting it right first time, yeah, not so good. But with Lottie, you can start your speech agent and just set the goal. With intelligent automation, tell Lottie to create a study. And LabVantage CORTEX applies the templates automatically, creates the samples and conditions for a single approval. 5 minutes of time, 1-click approval, low error. The impact for stability studies and shelf life studies is potentially saving up to 95%. 99 fewer clicks, much lower risk, ultimately higher productivity. And isn't that what we're all striving for? So let's have a look at this video. And it's quick. Remember, we're saving 95% of our time.
While working in the LabVantage stability module, a stability analyst uses LabVantage's inbuilt chatbot Lottie to perform actions. In this case, a stability study is being requested for a drug with defined conditions. The result is the created stability study. Now, let's perform that action again, showing the agentic framework that is being used behind the scenes. This includes agents being orchestrated to service the request.
So I know that was super quick, but that's the whole point. The agent orchestrates, Cortex orchestrates each agent to do a specific task. One agent isn't the master of all things. Each agent has a specific task and it just does that. And in GXP batch release review, the challenge is often all of the reviewing. Step 1, batch data is ingested automatically. The AI reviews it. So LabVantage CORTEX does this review in the background. In-spec results are automatically accepted. Only exceptions are flagged for human review. Reviewers approve the exceptions and the disposition is released. The audit trail is generated automatically. So what might have taken 30 minutes is cut down to perhaps 10 per sample. The reduction in time is savings of up to 70%. And the reviewers focus their expertise where it matters the most, where the exceptions lie, where the problems are. So you get faster reviews, fewer errors, maintain full compliance, and get better outcomes. So this is a bit of an overview of the orchestration and how the layers work together. Through the Lottie interface, you talk to your LIMS, your ELN and your portal. The orchestration agent listens and understands, and then it routes your tasks appropriately. Agents run. The worksheet agent works on the worksheets. The sample agent does the samples. The stability agent builds stability protocols. All of them can be engaged, or just some. It depends on your request. And then the orchestration agent, LabVantage CORTEX, bundles up all of that information and feeds it in back to you. And you can upgrade agents without having to do a full system upgrade. So the compliance questions we often hear is LabVantage CORTEX GXP compliant? The answer is yes. LabVantage CORTEX agents can be configured to meet GXP compliance. Compliance is always a two-way street. What if an AI agent makes the wrong recommendation? When we're building these systems, there's a risk management basis for all of the decisions of importance. And where it's critical and high risk, why not put a human in the loop to require an approval step? And every decision, whether it's by the AI or by the human, is fully auditable. Can we train agents on our SOPs? Yes. It's important. That's part of the knowledge base. Agents are trained on your specific SOPs, your compliance requirements, and your quality standards. What about hallucinations? LabVantage CORTEX agents are grounded in your lab's actual data. Remember up here? using knowledge graphs and human oversight provides an additional safety net. So what's the case for acting now? The business case is what the numbers say. Scientists can reclaim a good chunk of that 40% of the time they're spending on administrative tasks. Worksheets can be created in minutes, not hours. Similar with stability, hours cut down to minutes. Batch release down to a few minutes. Master data management, and this one's properly exciting. Months of work cut down to weeks. And audit preparation is almost there by default. The key return on investments come from time. You get back time to do your core job, reduction of errors, and faster insights earlier. So where do you start? Don't start dreaming with this big strategy. Just look at your most important workflow. Choose it because of high repetition, where the rules are defined, the data's available, and the risks are understood, and benefits can be measured. So identify the workflow, define your controls, plot the value, expand with evidence. And that's it. Build on science, driven by intelligence, controlled by you. That's LabVantage CORTEX, intelligence that runs the laboratory.